I'm WeatherBug meteorologist Rachel Peterson. Was extreme winter weather to blame for two of the biggest blunders in history? Let's find out by taking a look back at the early 19th century. Napoleon Bonaparte is the French emperor and is considered one of the greatest military commanders in history. He was a gambler and risk-taker, as well as a workaholic. He was well on his way to ruling all of Europe when he made what some consider as his most strategic mistake. Napoleon didn't think his military campaign would last into winter, so he didn't prepare for the cold Russian winter. After unsuccessful negotiations with the Russians in June 1812, Napoleon put together Europe's largest army, nearly 650,000 men. The plan was to force Russia to submit. The Russians knew they couldn't compete with Napoleon's grand army, so they retreated, drawing the French further into Russia. Their strategy was to strip the land of all the supplies as they went. With the harsh winter ahead and a lack of supplies, the Grand Army would have a hard time surviving the months to come. Summer ended, and as expected, Napoleon's supplies were dwindling. The men were dropping like flies due to fatigue, hunger, and desertion. September 14, 1812, Napoleon's army entered Moscow, weak in number and health, as they faced the oncoming winter. The city was stripped clean by the Russians, and to make matters worse, fires broke out and burned the soldiers' shelters. Napoleon had little foresight into climatology and weather of Russia. Without the technology, they certainly had no way of knowing any forecasts or current conditions outside of spying and talking to the locals. And it's doubtful that the French army would consider that Russia's climate would be so different from theirs. The French army found themselves in an unusually early and especially cold winter. In mid-October, Napoleon had no choice but to leave Moscow. According to C.J. Menard's 1869 analysis of the military campaign, temperatures ranged from 32 degrees Fahrenheit to 36 below zero Fahrenheit. Most of the retreating soldiers died from frostbite and starvation. Only 10,000 of the 650,000 made it home. This blunder signified the beginning of the end for Napoleon's rule, and the weather played a significant role. Not everyone learned from history. Another overconfident military leader tried to take over Europe and invade Russia in the mid-20th century, 130 years after Napoleon failed. Now it's your turn to do the research. Figure out who this leader was and what role the weather played in the second invasion of Russia, and then take a look at the similarities and the differences between the two invasions.